services going on here today, Father. We pray that these young people, Father, will turn out today, Lord, that will grow closer to you, Father. Those who may not be saved, Father, we will pray that today will be the day of salvation, Father. Be with us as we go through this day. We pray this in Christ's name.
Mark chapter 15, we'll begin reading in verse 39. This morning we're going to look at the burial of Christ. And when the centurion which stood over against him saw that he so cried out and gave up the ghost, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." There were also women looking on afar off, among whom was Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James the Less and of Joseph and Salome, who also, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered unto him, and many other women which came up with him unto Jerusalem. And now when the even was come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable counselor, which also waited for the kingdom of God, came and went in boldly unto Pilate, and craved the body of Jesus. And Pilate marveled if he were already dead. And calling unto him the centurion, he asked him whether he had been any while dead. And when he knew it of the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph. And he bought fine linen, and took him down, and wrapped him in the linen, and laid him in a sepulchre which was hewn out of a rock. I just want to point this out. This is just one of those things. It's one of those things, Brother Ivy, that just, he went and asked, he went and begged, he went and boldly tried to retrieve the body. But he didn't go and buy anything, and he wasn't prepared. Doug, he went in there to do all of that, but he hadn't prepared. He wasn't expecting to get a yes. He got a yes and then had to go and get the linen and get everything he needed to take care of it. If you were expecting to get a yes, you prepare first. And he bought him fine linen and took him down and wrapped him in the linen and laid him in a sepulchre which was hewn out of a rock and rolled a stone unto the door of the sepulchre. And Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, beheld where he was laid. The burial of Jesus. Burial in itself establishes in a way that nothing else can the absolute finality and reality of a death. It's not fun to talk about. Brother Kevin, it is the reason why there are many people who do not want to walk by the casket. Because when we see the body, it is a slap in the face of reality. There are others who just don't ever want to go to the gravesite. Because looking at the hole and seeing the dirt brings a finality. There is no more sharing of relationship. There is no more fixing. There is an end to things at the burial. We're talking about the burial of Jesus. The gospel is the life, the death, the burial, and the resurrection. Doug, it is important that we see the burial. Brother Wayne, I always ask you the tough questions. You ready? Do you know why you bury people?
Take care of them.
Because they're dead. You bury dead people. Man, it's important that we're talking about the burial. Because there are all kind of crazy things that are said. You see, Jesus wasn't really dead. He was in a deep sleep. And in the sepulcher for 3 days, he was able to wake up. There is a very popular religion that would teach, well, because he was a great prophet, he would have never gone to the cross. You know what would have happened? He would have gotten a substitute. And the substitute would have gone to the cross. The substitute would have died. Hence, is there really a resurrection? That's what makes the burial so important. You bury the dead. Like Kevin, this is where it slaps us in the face. I can read about the cross. I can hurt. I can struggle. I can in the outskirts think about things about the Trinity and about God, and all these things can be there, but I can just keep them out there until I consider the burial. The burial hits me straight in the face. That all of this stuff I'm keeping out there, he came, he lived, he died. It hits us right in the face with what really happened. A couple things, because I don't want to skip over all of this, but there's a picture here that, again, only comes in Mark, and I want to capture what's revealed in Mark a little different than the other Gospels. But there's just some basic things that happen at death, at burial, when we're confronted. And one of those things is that it establishes this finality, but another thing it does is it confronts us with our own mortality. Ray, you want to know how many decisions are made at funerals? It's like New Year's resolutions. We go to a funeral, and at the funeral we think, here's what happens. I need to go and apologize to that person. I need to fix this relationship. It slaps us with, life doesn't go forever. We have to face that there is an end. We pledge to be more thankful. We pledge to be more loving. Sometimes we leave and say, well, I gotta, none of those things matter to me. I just gotta live my life. Well, it shows you what you determine as life. And, for that, we have this whole new thing called the bucket list. Man, I have to do all these things because this is what's going to complete me. I'm missing out on life if I don't do my bucket list. It matters that we see this thing that happens at funerals, because when we take a look at the three groups that are here, there's a group of women, there's a centurion, and there's Joseph. Brother Ray, you know what's happening to them? They're getting slapped in the face with their own mortality as well. They're doing this same thing we would do. There's a review, there's an evaluation. And what we see is the centurion evaluates, who is this man? Who is he? And in his evaluation, he comes to this conclusion. Truly, this was the Son of God. And I wonder, the Bible doesn't tell us this, but I wonder if he thinks, what did I just do? What did I just do? And then there's Joseph of Arimathea. It's not just Joseph, we'll see in a few minutes. It's Nicodemus as well. John tells us Joseph took his friend Nicodemus. They retrieved the body together. Now, maybe only Joseph went in front of Pilate, but two men went to the cross to get him down. And Nicodemus was the other. And they were moved from this place of secret belief. Something changed inside of them too. They evaluated their life, and all that kept them in hiding before didn't matter anymore. We're going to spend some time, we're going to look at that, because I think there's a lot of Josephs or Josephines in churches today. There are a lot of people who would choose to stay private Christians, fears controlling them. But here, especially when we take a look at Joseph of Arimathea, and I'm trying to run through this. The body of Jesus is on the cross. Brother Wayne, the body is on the cross, and something needs to happen because he shouldn't be there more than 24 hours. Deuteronomy. He has to be taken down within 24 hours. Something needs to be done. And a man steps forward. We know something about this man. He was a ruler. Matthew tells us he was a rich man. This passage tells us he was an Orthodox, good Jew. How do we know? Because he was looking for the kingdom. He was doing everything he was supposed to do, looking for the kingdom to come. He was looking for the Messiah. He was looking for the Son of Man. That's what was important in his life. He was rich. He was a ruler. I'm going to tell you, he was a Pharisee. Matthew also tells us he was a disciple of Jesus. John tells us he was a secret disciple. So, Brother Kevin, I'm not stretching that. I'm not making that up. Secret disciple. Disciple in hiding. Luke tells us that he wasn't there. He didn't consent. Well, it doesn't say that. I'm sorry. Let me get this right. It doesn't say he wasn't there. It says he didn't consent with the Sanhedrin. He didn't consent to the crucifixion. No, the Bible doesn't tell us anyone dissented. So I'm going to tell you he probably wasn't there. Why? I don't know why. Maybe he just avoided the whole thing. That's what we do. We avoid the confrontation. But a man steps forward to fill in and to take care of what needs to be done. Again, this is not something he would have done a day ago. Something changed. He has a request. The Bible tells us this is a bold request. His request is, why is it so bold? Ready? We already gave you the easy question. This is a rhetorical question. When a person was crucified, do you know who that person belonged to? Rome. That son would no longer be part of the family. That son was owned by Rome. They took him. He was a prisoner of Rome, and they controlled him. As such, it was very rare that a body would ever go back to the family. It was done to create ultimate shame. It was very rare that a body would come down off of the cross sooner than days and days and days. Often they would rot there and then be taken down and thrown into an open mass grave. This is what's supposed to happen when someone is crucified. We think it was bold because he was going to Rome to ask for Jesus. It was. He had just been tried, and they had to find him guilty of something. It had to be high treason. He calls himself king. What about Herod? And what about Caesar? And what about... He was just found convicted of high treason to Rome. Asking for him was a big deal. He had just been found heresy of the Jews. Asking for him was a big deal. Well, just asking for him at all is a big deal. It doesn't happen. But here we have a man formerly controlled by fear. How do you know that? Because he stayed secret for fear of losing, for fear of being attacked, for fear of something. He stayed secret. And now he comes boldly with a big question, with a big request. It was courageous. I think about this too. Matt, I've had all week just to go over the burial. You know what it is all week to go over a burial? It's no fun. It brings you in touch with your own mortality and your own sin and a lot of other things. But one of the things that just stuck out the whole time is he comes before Pilate with this big request. Now, do you remember the last time we saw Pilate? Okay, the last time we saw Pilate in the book of Mark, he's like, what am I going to do with this man? What am I supposed to do with Jesus? What a question. Why did he ask that question? Because he found no fault in him. Okay, you see the turmoil. We felt the turmoil at that point. He's making a decision of who Jesus is. What is Pilate going to do with Jesus? That big picture. Now you know what you see? It's almost just like paperwork. Is he dead? Okay, you can have him. What a scary thing. Jeremy, how's it scary? When we are confronted and convicted by the Holy Spirit, Brother Rick, we better move right then. Because there's no telling if we're going to be convicted again. But for sure, we're hardening our heart. Just that quickly, Pilate had hardened his heart too. All of that confrontation is gone. Okay, he's done. Dead. Body. We don't have to take care of it. Over. Ray, isn't that shocking? You know what's shocking? Because I can do the same thing. Brother Kevin, we should move when we are motivated. Now, this is what I want to look at. I got a few minutes. Mark's view, I think all those things are true, of the burial in every gospel. But there's something specific right here. We have 3 groups of people talked about in the book of Mark dealing with his burial. There's a pagan, the centurion. There's women, and women, and women, and women, and women, and women. And then there's 2 Pharisees. A centurion, an idolater, a pagan, the worst. Actually, I don't know this. I don't know who's the worst. The women who are disenfranchised and don't count, or the Roman who's the enemy on the outside and an idolater and blasphemous. But Brother Kevin, at least he's a man. And then a Pharisee. You're not finding those 3 at the same table ever. But God brings them together in his burial. It is an amazing thing. You know what the gospel does? It brings strange groups together. If we stop and really look around inside the church, there are some of us apart from a changed heart and a different thing we revolve around would have no association with somebody else. But God brings us all together in a way where we sacrifice and care and love one another. That's the power of the gospel. And we see it right here in the beginning, just in the picture of his burial. This is a strange group. But the thing that's really interesting to me at the beginning, Brother Ivy, I don't know if you ever thought about this. So here we're going over the burial. You know who you don't see in this picture of the burial? Not a single male disciple. Not one. Brother Kevin, the ones we would say are the best of the best. The closest. Not one. In fact, it is interesting to me that the only group that saw the life, the death, the burial, and the resurrection are women. Now, you want to know why that's so strange? Because at this time, the testimony of women in a Jewish court or a Roman court is no testimony at all. No truth. They weren't even allowed. But God, trust the gospel, brings women to this great place of responsibility. Well, Ivy, there's not a single man there. In fact, stop and think about this. Who could say, I was there at the death, the burial, and the resurrection? Only women. Jeremy, God's just ahead of the times. No, it's way more than God's ahead of the times. God's kingdom is not like our kingdom. What he values is not what we value. He's spending his time taking what we had twisted and he's untwisting it. He's taking that which is disenfranchised and he's giving it ultimate value, which is great because you know what's been disenfranchised? Sinners. And he gives us all ultimate value. He brings them all together. God makes women his witness at a time in history in which no one, no government, no society would have given them the same job. He is no respecter of persons. His kingdom is not like our kingdom, and he is untwisting everything we can hold on to and try to make value. Look at who we see here. The idolater, the Pharisee, and the women. They're all together. Now, Joseph, it says, comes boldly. Where did he get this new courage? Where did this come from? Understand, when he was a fraidy cat. Matt, when he was scared, when he was hiding with all of his pomp and circumstances and spending his time justifying it in his head and all whatever he's doing? Jeremy, what do you do? He's doing the same thing we do. When he was doing the same thing we were doing, it was much easier than now. First, now he's dead. The one you thought would save you, now he's cursed, now he's demeaned. Now even his apostles are having nothing to do with him. Something happened that took him from that place to this place. What? I don't know, but we can see what must have changed. And I will say this. There you go. Brother Rick, this week, for like 3 days, I mean, I was so depressed reading this. Oh, Brother Jeremy, that makes sense. You're looking at the burial. No, that's not what depressed me. That's a cop-out. What depressed me was this. At Jesus' death, there was darkness for 3 hours. Different, felt, mysterious, spiritual darkness. Shouldn't that have affected people who knew the Bible? Well, why no effect? And then, it's not in the book of Mark, but we know there was an earthquake. There were graves that were opened. Brother Ivy, shouldn't this brought some change? Let's just like, why and how? And that's just killing me. And then all of a sudden I got to hear and say, you know what the problem is? The problem is I'm not thinking there's any change. And look, there's change. When I get to heaven, I want to hug Joseph of Arimathea. I want to go for a walk with Nicodemus because there was change. You don't understand how much hope that brought to me over this week. I was making it dark. But he came to bring the light. And it did bring change. But people have choice. And that's still sad. It's still sad that they mocked him. It's still sad that they denied him. It's still sad that 90 days later they're wanting to beat Peter. They're wanting to arrest John. It's still sad. But there was change. And Joseph was changed. And he was bold. There was an attitude change inside of him. I can tell you everything that changed, Brother Kevin. But I can tell you that his attitude toward power and money and influence, it changed. See, because what happens is when you have power, when you have money, when you have influence, it tends to become not just something you have. It tends to become something you are. What do you mean? Well, see, I can wear these clothes because I have. I can drive this car because I have. I can go to these places because I have. I can live here because I have. I can do these things, Matt, because I have. You see what becomes the definition of who and what I am and do? It's what I have. Or Jeremy, that might be some people, but not me. I do good with what I have. Granted, lots of times that's what we do, but there's a limit. We'll only do good with what we have until it gets to the place that it jeopardizes what we have. But obviously there's a limit. When doing right gets to the place that I might lose what I have, who I am, where I can go, what I can do, how I'm viewed, then I might stop just before that level. Here we have two men. Oh, well, let me say this too, by the way. That's one of those things crazy. I'm 56 years old, so I know that. I know that's a struggle. That's my struggle, that's your struggle, that's every person's struggle. But you know what's crazy? For pride, we'll torch everything we are and everything we have. We'll lose a job, we'll give up money, we'll separate relationships. For pride, we'll torch it all. But for right, we keep a limit. You know what we are? We're twisted. Since the fall, we're twisted. Here are two men who use their power to do the right thing. Let me give you this illustration. I was going to skip it because it takes time, but now I need to be careful. I'm not trying to anoint this person. Brother Doug, I'm not trying to anoint this person. But our country right now, in fact, more than our country, the world is struggling with the picture of one man doing what's right. And it's costing him a lot. In fact, they're so struggling. You want to know why they're struggling? I'll tell you his name in a minute if you don't already know. But they're struggling because they don't understand it. They keep coming up with ways. He must be gaining somehow. He's doing this for gain. There's got to be some gain, right? His name is Elon Musk. It's costing him more and more and more. And it makes no sense. Why do you sacrifice to do... You're losing who you are and what makes... He's the richest man. You know, he can't lose that. By the way, he probably isn't. The richest man is probably Putin. Probably has been for a decade. We just don't count all of those things, by the way. No one can compare when you talk about his wealth and control. Values of communism. Let me just say this. When I was a kid, Leonid Brezhnev was the communist man. Everybody in here is old enough to remember that. Maybe not Matt. Matt, get with it. I lived in Europe. And there was like this mocking joke about Leonid Brezhnev. It's getting close to his death. And so, joke basically was like this. He's talking to his mom. And he says, "Mother, aren't you proud of your boy? Look at the house. Look at the summer house on the Baltic. Look at the house on the Baltic. Look at the one by the Black Sea. Go to the garage. See the limousine. See the cars. Aren't you proud of your boy? Look at all that he has accomplished." And she said, "I know, Leonid. But aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" "What if the communists come?" Well, there's the joke. The communists were there. He was the communist. But you know what communism that makes all things common has done? It has made him very wealthy and very powerful. And so that's what they're trying. There's got to be a way that Elon's gonna benefit from this. Now, personally, I think he's trying to hightail it out of there as quick as he can, because his motivation, brother, is not like yours and mine. Okay? Our motivation is constrained by love for the one on the cross. Whatever his motivation is, I think it's a little different, because right now he's trying to get out as quick as he can. I'm going to hit 1 trillion, I'm gone. I'm still thankful for him. But it just shows this world does not understand sacrificing for right. It doesn't fit. And we have a picture of two men here whose attitude toward power and influence and wealth and what they have, it changed. Now they're motivated by something different. And it tells us this boldly. You know what that means? That means he went in there with some strength. This guy who was a rabbit before now is a lion. He is pleading. He didn't go in there to take no. I don't know why he didn't buy the linen first. But I like this. Not only was he strong, not only was he bold, but picture this. Okay, 45, 46. He takes Nicodemus. They go to retrieve the body. Ready? They go to retrieve the body. Skin ripped off, muscles torn to shreds, guts falling out, pierced in the side, bloody, nasty cadaver. You know what Jewish men didn't do? They didn't touch that. That was slave work or women's work. 2 days before, you know what he'd say? He'd say, "Hey, you women, come here." Now you got 2 Pharisees. taking down the cadaver from the cross. But Doug, you know what that is? That is, not only was he strong in his boldness, that is, he was humble. That is, when he is weak, now God is doing something with him. There's this change. Brother Hamilton, it's always nice to see you. I was struggling when I started this. There's no change. There's no change. Oh, but there's so much change. Nicodemus. Brother Glenn, you remember when we first hear about Nicodemus? John, what must I do to be saved? What do I need to do to be part of this kingdom thing? I believe you're the guy. Tell me. Well, you must be born again. Whoa, 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 whoa. You got to go back to the beginning. We don't hear it this way, but listen. Everything you've done, everything you've not done, everything you've accomplished, everything you are, everything you hold dear, it doesn't matter. Well, what a punch in the gut. You, a woman, a pagan, you're all at the same place. A centurion, a prostitute, a Pharisee, you're all at the same place. Nothing you did before, nothing you accomplished, it just doesn't matter. All through the book of Mark has been revealing, Mark has been showing us the contrast between Jesus' way and the way man attempts to save himself. Okay. Right here, in his death, in his burial, where we get to see them both again. There's two ways. There's only two ways. Okay. We see it in the centurion. Who's the centurion? Well, the centurion is an idol worshiper. Well, how do you know that? Well, at the very least, he worships himself. Okay? His life is all about no moral rules. I do what I want to do. I'm the boss. And whether he chases pleasure or power or control, somewhere he's getting his security, his comfort, his purpose, his value from what? Being the centurion. And that's one way we try to save ourselves. But Mike, I'm the guy. I get to do whatever I want. And you know the other way? The other way is right here too. We call them the Pharisees. They keep all the rules. In fact, they're so good they must be blessed. And that's such a scary thing. Because it's so easy for us to jump over into that camp. Actually, it's easy for us to jump into either camp. We can get so mad we quit. I might as well. Or we can hold on to what we can do and our value, and this is how we view our life. I'm such a good guy. But Kevin, if you only knew all the things I could do, but I don't do. You see here when we look at these guys, there's an identity change. And that's what happens. In both of those instances, everything revolves around themselves. The centurion, it's all revolves around him. He's in the center. Whatever happens, he views it how it affects him. And the Pharisees, they're in the center. It's what I can do, what I didn't do, what I have, what I don't have. Everything is self-centered. But there's something that changes here now. When he goes, all of that stuff doesn't matter. His dignity doesn't matter. He's holding on to a cadaver. I mean, two guys, how do you think they did that? These are not guys used to working with their hands. His dignity, his influence, his wealth, none of that seems to matter. There's a total identity change. Now he centers on Jesus. But Mike, I'm so glad you're here. I just want you to see how easy it is to jump into that camp, okay? This month, we have heard two very, pointed, very direct sermons dealing with duty and dealing with obedience. I want you to understand, we can do the duty, we can be obedient, just like the Pharisee. In fact, I would challenge us, any of us, to be as dutiful or as obedient as the Pharisees. It can become who we are. And you'll know it because you're going to struggle with the brother. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not like that guy. Or even better, I'm not like that guy, but I'll reach down into the gutter because I'm so good to help them. It just tells on ourselves. It's this, well, let me just do this. But Brother Jeremy, duty. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. That's right? I've been quoting that since I was 12 years old. This is the whole duty of man. And we can go, obey. Obedience is the very, we might even sing that today. Okay. But don't miss this. And it's 3 weeks ago, you have to pardon me, I can't remember if you covered this. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. What's the first commandment? The first, by the way, if you were counting, 1, 2, 3, what's the first letter? 1. So it begins at the first. The first, this is the beginning. What's the first and great commandment? And it's the first and great, because it's the first and it's the biggest. You know what happens when we don't do things because we love him? We've jumped over into that other camp. Yeah, Paul would say it that way. The love of Christ constraineth me. It's what motivates me. It's what pushes me. It doesn't allow me to quit. It changes everything. Now we're out of time. So let me just say this. You know what happens at the cross? We see that he loves us. You know what that should do? That should bring about an identity change. That should bring about a strength change. That should bring about a humility change. That brings us to the place that we do what we do because we love the one who loves us. All of this we learn at the burial of Jesus. Brother Mike, close in a word of prayer, please.